Hello, TCI family, Jonathan's Refuge, all of our faithful followers and friends from around the world. It is your Bishop, Archbishop Jonathan Brown here, or as a lot of people call me, Rev. It's a special night. It's Thursday, and in Marysville, Washington, where I'm at, and the majority of our staff are located, we celebrate church on Thursday night. Saturday and Sundays, the weekends, they're actually the days for rest. A lot of my fellow ministers, I don't mind that they want to celebrate, Sunday and do services on Sunday, but it's kind of ass backwards actually. We're supposed to work all week, including doing our stuff with church, so that on Sunday we can rest with our family and friends, not be tied up at some building with a bunch of people that are our church family. But there's a separation between where God worked all the time and then he rested. And resting, if you look at the word in the book of Genesis, the Hebrew word means to celebrate. So God did not go and rest. So all of my dear friends that love me think I sometimes don't rest enough. Go check the word, because they always will say, well, even God rested on the seventh day. Well, the lack of delving into the word of God in the Bible, you'd learn that the word rest meant celebrate. So you see, what you're supposed to do is celebrate things. So let's talk about David. What did David do? We had all these victories, right? This just tough guy, full of bravado. He's leading men and killing, the enemies and smiting his enemies, and he's conquering and he's expanding and he's doing all these things and he's fixing problems. He's united 12 tribes into a kingdom. All this stuff's happening. And in 2 Samuel chapter 6, it says, David again brought together all of the able men of Israel and Bela and Judah, and he keeps going. And then when he came to, remember when we talked about the caves of Adullam a couple of weeks ago? When he fled for his life from the king, he was an outlaw. What came with him? 400 outlaws. And so I'm always questioning, I wonder what David would do, because he didn't tell us all the details of what he did in the caves, some of it. But if you see the majority of what we just read in the chapter 6, if you read the whole chapter, David celebrates everything. He celebrates bringing the Ark of the Covenant back, and he gets the whole city involved. And his own wife's even like, what are you doing, David? You're dancing naked, because he wore a loincloth, and it's called the ephod. And it's the same loincloth that Jesus, when he was crucified on the cross, wore. It's a representation of only the high priests wore this loincloth. Very special garment as a servant from God to the people. And so David wore that when he brought the ark in. His wife got angry. He's like, what are you doing dancing naked? All those women seeing you, and all these are your employees. They shouldn't see you doing this. That's what the wife said. She did. And he responded with, I am giving them an example of how they should act before God. Ooh, she got stepped back. Got to step back a second. I've had a few friends that had to step back and say, oh, okay. Yeah, you see, my wife and me do a lot of stuff, and some people question us. This weekend, one of our employees, their car's having some problems. In our firm, we're not liable to take care of employees' problems, but we do try to help as much as we can. And we're trying to help work on this vehicle and get things fixed for this employee, this team member. And this weekend, there's some special things and they're trying to do. And so long story short, my wife's like, well, why don't you take one of the cars? And why are you going to give her one of the cars? I could say. I could. Why would you want to give the person one of the cars? I mean, this isn't the company. Why are you doing that? Because she's celebrating something. And my wife, my founding partner, wants to celebrate with that person. So by offering a vehicle, we're able to participate in helping celebrating our celebrations and helping people celebrate life. Now, what does that do? So David keeps doing this. And as we read through the story of this chapter and continue in there, we'll see how the same thing with the strong men. He celebrated with them. Hey, we're 400 strong. We're pretty, that was like 1,200 people because you had wives and children and all of that. So he then, each time he went to the next city, as he's up in the city of Hebron that we talked about last week, learning to be a king under a smaller kingdom, just one tribe. Then he gets promoted after, 7 years? He gets promoted to the big leagues and gets all 12 tribes and becomes the king of the entire country of Israel. and then he reigns there for another 50 some odd years. So here's this beautiful story. I'm incorrect on the 50 years, by the way. I think it was 35 more years. But we're sitting here with this beautiful story of a man who had triumphs, and he always took people along with him. I don't know if you know me enough, but I'm never alone. My poor wife, actually, sometimes I feel like maybe I should take like one trip where it's just me and her. Because whenever I go somewhere, I want to celebrate it with everyone around me. And here's why. That is how your bishop became a person who has fanatical friends. I have raving fans, and I have raving friends. Fanatical fans, fanatical friends. They will fight to the end with me because they love me. How do you get that? I got it because I learned from this guy, David. As I read the story to you just now from my iPhone, I'm sitting here remembering years past and how this man showed me to celebrate the little church when I first pastored this little tiny country church. It was just a couple people. But boy, I sure delivered sermons like I was speaking to the president and the Senate and the Congress. As though God himself, which she was right there with me. And I was celebrating. We had a great victory, and it was so amazing. And I remember the district superintendent of the church. He heard about my celebration, and he calls me up. He's like, "Is it true you had this huge church party and celebration and barbecue, and you got the mayor and everyone to come down there?" "Yeah, for what?" "We had one new person in our church. We went from 4 people to 5. That is massive growth. That's huge." He's like, "Just one." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That's stupid and foolish." Now, what's funny is that little celebration got a whole bunch of other people in the city going, "Who is this person? And wow, we should maybe pay attention." And the church just went, "Phew." All the wisdom of the old fellas said, "No, you shouldn't be doing that." And there's this young guy, and I said, "But I saw David, and he only had these 400 guys in the cave. He didn't have a kingdom yet. And he was celebrating. I only got 4 people in my church, but I'm celebrating like it is the biggest church in the world." And then it starts to become one. And so our staff, my wife and me, we take them everywhere with us. They're our team. They're our family. They become, and yes, there's layers, right? There are layers. Your closest sibling, right, is not as your cousin's not as close as your sibling, or your sibling's not as close as your cousin. Whoever those relationships are, there's different relationships in your family. Well, our family is not just blood. We choose our family, me and my wife, and our church. And that's what David did. He chose his family, and he celebrated everything with them. He brought them on the vacations. He had them eat at his table every night, literally the king's table. His favorite people, they all sat together and ate, and they partied. They celebrated. And that's what tonight we just did at the Refuge for church. We celebrated 2 people in our organization, someone who, again, I have known and worked with for 25 years, and my wife has known for 7 or so, and another person who we've known for now going on our first year with this person. And these are directors in our firm, which for those that aren't familiar, are directors like the equivalent of like an executive vice president. They're a major executive in our organization. They do so much for this company and the people of it. And I think of David. And so we're a mental health firm. We're a nonprofit, folks. We have, on top of the church, we have one of the largest private practices in the county and one of the largest in the state. And every 90 days, we just made a commitment to take all of our employees out for 2 nights at some sort of a place, a resort, an Airbnb, a hotel, to go celebrate. I remember when my wife said, "What are we doing this for?" And I said, She's like, "Oh, yeah. It's celebrating." And some of the people are like, "What are we celebrating?" The staff. And it's like, what? But what did they accomplish? Some of these people are new. That's right. So we're going to show them that we're so confident that they're going to be so successful. And we're going to celebrate the victories. And these people are going to want to earn it. Now, some of you say, "Well, I don't. Guess what, folks? We started this whole thing with $20. $20. We've built it into a multi-million-dollar empire. You can't sit here and tell me it doesn't work. I'm 50 years old this September. Like David, I have worked in the trenches, and I have followed this man's path my whole life. And I'm telling you, you have to celebrate it. If you want your partner in your relationship to be better at something, why don't you, as an example, I know, just to give you some simple things, my wife one day, we both have things we both do that we don't like. That's just, every couple's got them. And I won't say about what I'll just say the one thing she did to me one day. She says, boy, honey, you sure are really good. I'm so proud of you. And she said this in front of someone about how you're so good about making sure that the trash gets taken out. But I looked over like, what did she? My wife doesn't drink. Did she have someone slip her a Mai Tai? And then it hit me. In some respect, some people say that's manipulating because she should just come out and say, I want you to take the trash out. She has. I just didn't listen. And so she came about it another tactic. Well, if he doesn't do it because I ask him to, what if I compliment him and say how I'm very grateful that he cares about me that much? Man, that just puts you in the spot. And that's a good thing because I didn't listen the first time. So it allows, and she does the same. I've said the same thing. I think, oh yeah, you don't need to worry about that thing. I mean, if the piece of that car falls off, it's no biggie. And then she's like, uh-oh, I better pay attention to that. So you have that ability, right? And in relationships, sometimes you're speaking those things that aren't as though they are. In business, that's the same thing. I have people that when I hire them, they're not qualified for the job they have. They're not. But they are the most qualified for the job. Now, what does that mean? David had to interview people to become generals. Do you know the men that he chose came out of his hoodlums? Just so you know. There was a few from the regular army and things, yes. But he took some guys from his outlaws, from the 400 and the strong in the caves of Adullam. So, just because you don't have a degree, just because you don't have whatever, I've actually always bet on the underdog. I find the underdog might not have the knowledge from school, might not have the degree, the pedigree, whatever that means. And that's good because what I usually find is I find the person who's got drive and moxie. And let me tell you, the two people's lives that we're celebrating tonight have drive and they got moxie. Me and Cynthia, the first lady of TCI, couldn't do what we do. Our church is part of our nonprofit in this whole family of things because we supply a spiritual sanctuary, a refuge for our faithful followers. But this thing is changing the world like David, one person at a time, but we got to remember to celebrate it. So as I close out, and I'm making a short message tonight, I want you to think of this. What can you do tomorrow to help someone celebrate something? What is it you can do? Maybe you got a client and you're trying to get them to be proactive. Send them a text. Say, I'm so excited. I was just telling somebody how proud I am because I know you're about to get that thing done so you can finally get that job. Or you can finally get the application filled out so you can get that house. It might work. Find out how to celebrate also. Celebrating can be different ways for different people. One of my good friends in our organization who's becoming a leader, he's not a people person in some respects. He's more of a one-on-one guy. Not a crowd guy. When it comes to the crowds, I don't even have to look around or ask where he's at because he's usually not there. And slowly gets around the group a little more, and then he can stay around a crowd if he knows them all. Nothing wrong with that. You just got to learn to celebrate things a little differently, and we do. And so you got to find that uniqueness to celebrate as David did. And you might be celebrating something in a spiritual aspect. You might be celebrating a clean and sober date. You might be celebrating, an anniversary date, finally becoming separate. You might be celebrating weight loss. You might be celebrating weight gain. I don't know. But you need to start celebrating. My health, it's getting better every day. There are days where it's not. But you'll be damned if you hear your bishop ever say, it's not a good day today. Nope, it's going to be simply this. I am fantastic and my day is going so good. If I could land a triple gainer off of the roof of this building, I tell you, Lord, I could do it. That's how good of a day it is. And there are moments where that is just me speaking those things that are not as though they are. And more than not, folks, I'm blessed. Because my life and my day works out. And God guides it. I'm going into some negotiations into Mexico. And I'm going to be talking about this in a later meeting in the next few weeks with some very scary people. For most people, they're scary people. Trying to negotiate peace between some organizations. And as I think of David again, I had to think of celebrating as an amazing tool, because I see two organizations that are evil and they're battling, and there's people being killed, and I'm being asked because of my past and who I am as a bishop, and their exact words, moxie. And they're like, he's got the moxie to stand up to these guys. But what do you say to him? And I was praying and asking God, and it's clear as day, celebrate. What? So I found some things that I can start with, and we can celebrate some victories in each of our lives. That's what I want you to do. Figure out where you can celebrate the victories. I love you guys so much. Me and Cece love all of you. You know, our organization is buying the headquarters for our Grace Connection services and Jonathan's Refuge up in the, I can't tell you where, but not too far from here. It's a $1.1 million property, and then 4 more houses for another 2 or 3 million being put on there. It's so exciting, and I can't wait to share with you the good news. It'll probably be 2 weeks from now, but I love you guys. God bless you.